Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, my name is Dallin Hawes. It is great to have you here today. And I know in previous episodes we have talked about all kinds of stuff, whether it be taxes or insurance or retirement, whatever it is. We've talked about a host of different topics. But today I want to take a step back and to do a refresher. Many of you may not know the things we're going to talk about today, but many of you might. A refresher on, okay, when do you have to keep working till? What ages, how many years of service do you have to actually get the benefits and the retirement that you want, that you're happy with, right? That is a huge, crucial part of your planning. And so we're going to dig into that. There's a number of different types of retirement that may apply to you. So understanding which one you actually want and how long it's going to take you to get there is honestly the starting point for retirement planning. Because once you know the age that you are eligible to retire, then you can base everything off of that. So let's dive right in. So the first thing that you really have to know, okay, they call it an immediate retirement. This is a crucial term to understand, an immediate retirement. And so whenever OPM or whoever says an immediate retirement, that basically means that you are eligible to get a pension right away, okay? Right away. That is huge, an immediate retirement, okay? Now, as a regular FERS employee, there are a number of things that you have to meet, eligibility requirements that you have to meet to be eligible for this immediate retirement, okay? There's 3. Okay, let me get them pulled up here. Okay, first, the first one you have to meet is you have to meet your MRA and have at least 30 years of service, right? Or have 20 years of service at 60 years old, or have at least 5 years of service at 62. You have to meet at least one of those criteria to be eligible for an immediate retirement. So again, that's hit your MRA and have 30 years of service, or have 20 years of service at age 60, or at least 5 years of service at age 62. Now, you actually can get an immediate retirement by only having 10 years of service at your MRA, your minimum retirement age. And if you don't know what your minimum retirement age, just Google, say MRA chart. It'll come right up. It'll be one of the first few hits. So definitely know what your MRA is, how many years of service you're going to have at this point. Now, but like I just mentioned, with at least 10 years of service, you can actually get an immediate retirement at your MRA. I'm going to dig on that a little bit later because there's some downsides. So, but these are the core 3 ways to be eligible for retirement, for your full benefits and to get a pension right away that's unreduced. That's huge. Okay. Now, one big thing that is crucial to know too, if you are a special provisions employee. Now, if you are a special provisions employee, you probably know it already. That is air traffic controllers, that's firefighters, that's law enforcement officers. You probably know it already. The rules for you are actually a little different, okay? And again, you probably know it, but basically, you can retire at any age as long as you have 25 years of special provision time, or at age 50 if you have 20 years of service, okay? So if you're a special provisions employee, you can actually retire earlier than a traditional FERS and get an immediate retirement, which means you can, of course, retire right away and get a pension right away. So that is crucial. So again, that only applies to special provisions employees, and that's air traffic controllers, law enforcement, firefighters, you folks, and you know who you are the vast majority of the time, okay? That is huge. Now, like I said, you actually can get an immediate retirement at your MRA plus 10 years. Now, you are eligible, like I said, to get a pension right away if you only have 10 years and you hit your MRA. For many of you, it's going to be between 56 and 57 is going to be your MRA. Now, if you don't have the full 30 years at your MRA, you haven't hit age 60 or 62, right? You haven't hit the other requirements, then you actually can retire right away and you can keep your health insurance, your life insurance, assuming you meet all the eligibility on that side, but you can retire right away with only 10 years at your MRA. Now, the one downside is that your pension is going to be reduced, and it's going to be reduced at a rate of 5% per year for every year before 62. Okay, so if you're retiring, let's say at 57, with this type of retirement, an MRA plus 10 retirement, then your pension is going to be reduced by 25%, because that is 5% for every year before age 62. So if you retire at 57, that's 5 years before 62, and so therefore your pension is going to be reduced by 25%. So the MRA plus 10 is technically an immediate retirement where you can keep your insurance, assuming you meet the other requirements, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. And you can get a pension right away. You can retire potentially earlier than you would otherwise, but again, the big downside is you get that reduction. Now, if you want to learn more about this type of retirement, go to the article I wrote on this topic. So whenever you're watching a video or listening to a podcast, I always have an article with the exact same title on my website. If you go to on my website, up at the top, there's blogs. You can search by article, whatever. And there is an article with the exact same title that as the video and the podcast that you're listening to. So go check that out. There's a ton of links to tons of different articles about MRA plus 10 and all the different types of retirement that we're going to be talking about today. Okay. Again, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on each of these types of retirement because there is too much to talk about. We're going to give you an overview of all of them to see, okay, which one makes sense for you, okay? Next, we're going to talk about a deferred retirement. Deferred retirement, okay? Deferred retirement. So, a deferred retirement is for those that don't meet any of the criteria that I've talked about so far. So let's say you're 45 years old, and let's say you've got 10 years of service, okay? Well, you don't meet any of the criteria that you would need to retire with an immediate retirement, right? Is there any possibility for you to get a pension? Well, there is, and it's called a deferred retirement, okay? A deferred retirement basically means that you may not be able to get a pension right away, but you are eligible for a pension. And basically, you've got to have at least 5 years of service, okay? At least 5 years of service. And if you have at least 5 years of service, then you can start your pension at least at age 62. At least at age 62. Now, if you have at least 10 years of service, you can start it as early as your minimum retirement age, but of course you will have a reduction if you don't have the full 30. So, for example, let's say this example right here, someone is 45 years old, they have 10 years of service, they go take a job somewhere else, whether it's on the private side, whatever it is, somewhere else, right? Well, they can leave the federal government, and then later at age 62, they call up OPM and say, okay, I want to start my deferred retirement, and they'll start, getting a pension for that time. Now, of course, it's not as big of a pension as it would have been if they kept working for the federal government, but they still are eligible for deferred retirement. So if that applies to you, definitely check it out. And again, go to this article that I have written on this. I have tons of links to all these types of retirement and all the things you need to think about specifically for each one, okay? So that's huge. Now, the next type of retirement is an early out retirement. Early out, okay? Or it is also called VERA, V-E-R-A, okay? Basically what this doesn't get accessible to everyone, okay? Not everyone's gonna have an option for an early out, but basically what happens, and many of you are experiencing this right now actually, is when an agency is downsizing, they wanna get people off their payroll, they're going to offer what they call an early out, basically incentivizing people to retire early, and there's some benefits for doing so, right? And the biggest one is you can retire early and keep your benefits earlier than you would otherwise. So to qualify for this early out, first, your agency has to offer it, right? Second, you have to have at least 25 years of service at any age or be over age 50 and have 20 years of service, okay? So you have to have at least 25 years of service at any age or over age 50 and have at least 20 years of service, okay? That's huge. So if you meet one of those criteria and your agency offers it and they accept your application, then you can take an early retirement. And basically what that means is you can retire, get a pension right away before you would otherwise be eligible, right? And you could potentially keep your health insurance and life insurance and all those insurance that you need normally, as long as, of course, you're eligible for those, right? And then, of course, you retire early. But again, I got a huge long article about the early out, the VERA, things you should be thinking about there as well. Now, one thing I do want to mention, I'm going to jump back to you special provisions employees, okay? Like I mentioned, for you special provisions employees, the normal rules for you to retire, you got to have at least 25 years of service at any age, or have 20 years of service and be age 50 or older, okay? Now, if you don't have at least 20 years of special provision time, over age 50 or at least 25 of special provision time, then you actually just default back into the traditional rules of retirement that I've been talking about for traditional FERS. So if you don't have enough time under the special provision rules, again, you're just going to default to the other rules I've been talking about for traditional FERS. So even if you're special provisions, you want to make sure you understand the rules for everyone. Okay, that's huge, huge to know. Okay. Let me see. So those are the main types of retirement that you really should have on your mind. Now, there's a postponed retirement, which goes, if you go to the article about an MRA plus 10 retirement, which I have, of course, linked up in the big long article I have on my website, definitely check that out. Then, that's a different type of retirement. There's a number of different nuances for the things I've talked about, but hopefully that gives you some context into some of the main options for you of, okay, when are you eligible to retire, right? And what benefits are you going to have then? Now, and that brings us to an important point. To keep your different insurances, there's different rules, right? But to keep your health insurance, this is the one I'm going to talk about right now, your health insurance, your FEHB, okay? Your civilian federal employee health insurance. To keep that into retirement, you have to meet a few criteria, right? And the most crucial ones, you got to be covered for at least 5 years under FEHB, okay? You can change plans within that 5 years. It just has to be, you have to be covered under some FEHB plan for the 5 years before you retire, okay? That's huge, that's huge. So if, let's say you're on a spouse's plan with another employer, you want to get onto an FEHB plan, assuming you're planning to keep it into retirement, at least 5 years before you retire, okay? So that's number one. Second, you have to retire with an immediate retirement. Now, at the beginning of the video, I defined what an immediate retirement was, right? And there were some criteria, right? So you have to have at least 5 years, the last 5 years of your career, be under FEHB, and you have to retire with an immediate retirement. Those are the huge criteria that you have to meet to be able to keep your health insurance, which is one of your best benefits into retirement. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, or if there's anything else that you say, hey, you missed this, I think you should cover this more in depth, definitely let me know, and I'll definitely put that in the queue for a future video. So have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.